so much for that introduction. It's just kind of like, wow. It made me realize so many things. First of all, that when I speak, that some people are actually listening. That was a bit sobering. I was like, oh, it really is listened to. Maybe I should think more. But it was nice that Caitlin was listening, because I think she did a better job putting it together and making it sound interesting than I did the other day. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah, so it's really great to be here at the University of Idaho. I really like Moscow a lot. I've been having a good time. I haven't been eating too much, so that's a whole good thing. So I was, that's Tales of the New World was a lot of fun to write. But I'm going to read something from a book that kind of grew out of this interest I had in these explorer stories. And I thought, oh, if I can write these, when I was writing Tales of the New World, I was just overwhelmed with the idea that I couldn't write. All of it was terrifying, and I didn't know what I was doing, and people were going to find out that I was making all this stuff up about real people. I think I'm still terrified about that, and that book came out several years ago. So then I decided to keep going, and then because it wasn't bad enough to write about dead explorers, I was going to start writing about Irish heroes, because God knows the Irish don't have any writers of their own. They need to do it for them. So I decided I'd take on an Irish revolutionary. So I started trying to do this book, Valiant Gentlemen. I started doing it a long time ago. The guy I wanted to write about was Roger Casement, who is the Irish revolutionary who starts out in the Congo as a young man in his 20s. So he goes out there in like the 1880s, 1890s. And he goes out there and he's just working in a clerk's job, because there aren't really many jobs back in Ireland, and he comes from a family where he has a family connection which can send him out to the Congo. So he goes out there and he sees a whole lot of bad stuff going down. And it's King Leopold's Congo. There's a lot of enforced slave labor and all this stuff, and it kind of molds him as a young man. So when he's out there too, he meets one of these characters who's actually one of the people in Tales of the New World. There's a short story about Mary Kingsley in there, and that was something that this guy, Roger Casement, knew in Africa. So now I'm in this weird position where my characters are making friends with each other, like from different books. I was like, that's a bit odd. So I'm going to read from further on in the book, because the whole thing of this book is, again, one thing, it's big. It's big, like it's a long, thick book. It's 500 pages. It's weirdly all in the present progressive tense. I mean, I don't know how many people in this room are writers, but a lot of the time when writers sit down and write something, you problematize what you want to do. You give yourself something that's really, really hard, and that's how you get your story to go. I mean, it's like Lepo School are people who really pay attention to what they're doing. So, there's a writer, George Marek, and he has an entire book without the letter E in it. So for me, writing all in the present progressive tense was like writing without the letter E. And I was like, people are going to age slowly, and they're not going to flash back. So anyway, that's a long way of explaining why, if you don't know what's going on, just ask me after, because I really tried to pick a piece which would excerpt well. But I mean, if I thought it would just be fine on its own, I wouldn't have written the other 475 pages. But you just have to bear with me. So at this point, these are, this is my guy Casement. He really wants to. I also can't see with these glasses on because I left my good glasses in an airport. These are the ones that still have the tape on them that I bought from the news agents in the airport. So this is not my taste. I have better case glasses. And I can't really see with them. So I can see the book, but I can't see you. Anyway, so my guy Casement, he really wants to get the English out of Ireland. So what he's done, this is during the First World War. This is, I'm going to tell you, it's 1950. It's June 1950. He's gone to Germany to get the weapons from Germany to get the English out of Ireland. So there's this crazy thing that happens at Gun Running at Home, where actually he's, this woman, this boat manned by two women. It's a pleasure cruiser. Goes from Germany and just sails over to Ireland and dumps all the weapons in a place called Hoth, and those are the weapons they use for the Easter uprising. But this is right before Easter, and what Casement is doing is he's in Germany and he's trying to get the guys who have already been fighting for, the England and Ireland and all that, who've already been captured by the Germans. He's trying to get them to fight for Germany, and That's what his job is then. And also the Easter Uprising, the Easter Rising was run mostly by like school teachers and poets and people like that. They weren't really soldiers. So one of the guys who is running this, their general, is actually a poet named Joseph Plunkett. You might have heard of. And this is in Berlin. Berlin, June 1915. Despite the lungs, Plunkett is tenacious. He's a terrier, and his diplomacy consists of sinking one's teeth into another's leg and hanging on until that person gives up. And what is Casement's diplomacy? He proceeds with reason, knowing the facts, knowing what is worth compromise and what is not. But this Bohm, who's been assigned to monitor the brigade, has been unresponsive. The flickering awareness that he reads in Bohm's face confirms nothing. Bohm is just wondering when Casement is going to land back in the hospital, and Casement's awareness of this makes him flustered, confirming Bohm's assessment. To be honest, Plunkett has been the more successful in realizing his ends, although he can't seem to get his head out of the streets of Dublin, and in order for this engagement to sustain, one has to bring England to her knees. That's why they're in Germany. Plunkett is a good listener, but he has little patience with Casement's long-range planning. Plunkett doesn't think that sending the Irish Brigade into Turkey is a good idea, although where else will they fight? They can't exactly remain in prison camps if they are, indeed, fighting alongside Germany. They can't pretend that they're soldiers if they have no weapons, no uniforms, no freedom. And Turkey is more than a convenient exercise. If the Turks break through the Suez Canal, then the English will lose Egypt. Ireland will act, and then certainly India will take the opportunity to assert herself. Without India, there is nothing to fill the English coffers, and England will therefore be undone. But Plunkett seems to think it's enough to push the English past the boundaries of hope and brave, and how long will that hold? And yes, one has to do something, but not that. A shoot-up on the streets of Dublin will only anger the locals and extinguish whatever momentum might be in play. Are you all right? Asked Plunkett. That was the second time you've asked me that, so I'll assume the first response was not satisfactory. I am still fine. Casement likes Plunkett, who looks as fragile as he himself does. The Irish certainly look like they could use all the help they can get. Casement cannot live with the present, with his senses frayed and his mood is shifting and is beyond his control as weather. The future forks into a myriad of possibilities, and each channel he explores in turn, and each is a horror. They don't get the guns to Ireland and stay in subjugation. They do get the guns to Ireland and are traitors, resulting in pointless loss of life. They don't form an Irish brigade and are futile. They do form an Irish brigade and are traitors to their own. Casement escapes to America, and he is a failure. Casement is held in Germany, and he is a prisoner. They sell him to the English, and he's hanged. He thinks of the word happen, and the ticking of time it implies, the fatalism of it. Things happen. What will happen? Because he's waiting, like a child, like a vassal, for his cues from the Germans. And how he got here, how this happened, he is not sure. What did Bohm have to say today? Plunkett shifts his head from side to side as he sorts it out. We're close. We're at least discussing weapons. That brings us a vote of confidence. More volunteers? We're up to 80. Is it your charm? It is my bribery. Plunkett pushes his glasses up his nose and settles into his chair. I can promise the men pay in good conditions, and my pragmatism has a certain appeal. And what is the substance of your pragmatism? You're not into contingencies, Roddy, but I've worked some out. If the Germans win, the men get home rule, and if not, he makes a face here, as if he spilled something. We'll send them all to America with 10 pounds of promise of employment. So Devlin, too, is losing faith in Germany. It's not that bad, Roddy, says Plunkett, who is willing to take a good deal of bad to get a little good. Probably a life lesson taught to him by his pocked lungs. Also, Bohm's agreed that the brigade will only serve under Irish officers. How did you manage that? That Plunkett winks, was my charm. If Casement were a different sort of man, it would actually be more funny, or less funny. Here's a declaration. Casement takes a sheet of paper and reads it over. It says all it needs to, that the Irish are being armed by the Germans but are fighting for themselves, no more traitors than Wolfe Tone for appealing to the French. It ends, with the help of our countrymen in Ireland and throughout the world, we hope either to win the independence of our country or to die fighting for the glory of God and the honor of Ireland. There's some nice writing here, says Casement, and it's wonderfully concise. I hear you gave them the making of Ireland and its undoing. Casement laughs, but it's a sad laugh. That's a whole book. Did they not like it? Oh yeah, they did. You know they're short on paper in the camp. Casement takes a joke. I seem to have misjudged my audience. Don't take it personally, they're just not great readers, and I'm sympathetic to you, as you know. Plunkett, when he's not functioning as senior level officer for the Irish Republican Brotherhood, is an editor and a poet. Do you have a book with you? Asked Casement, suddenly hungry for the specific solace of poetry, or some poems. What, of mine? Casement nods, since I am a great reader. No, I don't. I am incognito. And that's a bit disappointing because I can probably count on one hand the number of people who have asked me for a poem in the last year. Plunkett takes a flyer back from Casement. I'll scribble one down for you. Plunkett pauses in his scratching, looks to Casement. Don't look so concerned, Mr. Casement. I may not look like much of a soldier, but it's all up here. He taps his head. I'm a great strategist, trained in everything. I have tremendous faith in you, Joe. Plunkett looks at the paper, shrugs, and hands it on. I saw the sun at midnight, rising red. What a relief that this Plunkett hasn't given him a love poem. Deep-hued, yet glowing heavy with the stain of blood compassion, and I saw it gain swiftly in size and growing till it spread over the stars, the heavens bowed their head. The thing reads like a meditation all the way to the end, Christ and metaphysics, tuberculosis and guns. That's what this Plunkett is about. Are you a man of faith, Roddy? It has its appeal, but I wouldn't characterize myself that way. Well, I don't often ask people that. You've done so much good for the poor people in the Congo and in the Amazon, I just thought it was worth asking. Truth is, Joe Plunkett, you did that for them. For the poor people in the Congo, for the Indians. Certainly not for and because of God. God was used more as leverage for people with religion, as in, support this, as it's obviously the right thing to do. Then he was always sure of the right thing. And now, everyone seems to have righteousness on their side, and if there is a God, he's gone quiet. You're a man of great faith, says Casement. And poor health. Did you like the poem? Yes, I did. That's the right answer. Here's another question. Do you think you can get us the guns? Joe, I don't think the Germans are inclined to be generous with me. And also, I have serious misgivings about the use of the weapons. That's not for you to worry about, Roddy. We have our leaders and meetings and all of that, and what you need to do is help us out in your capacity. And what would that be? You are a man in Germany. Plunkett looks suddenly serious, but he's still only in his 20s, and the grave look doesn't accomplish much. You have leverage, you know that. Casement shakes his head. Yes, you do. Boehm has to give you something you want. What if you go back to America and let Devo and Monteith and all that know that the Germans are just jerking us around? We're at a tipping point, and the Kaiser needs us happy. It is generally believed that the Americans are about to enter the war. Now, I know, although you seem to be in denial, that America is likely to come in on the side of England. What makes you think that? Shipments sneaking out of England into England on passenger ships from New York. Casement folds himself deeper into his chair. He feels a tremor along his limbs. Roddy, there is going to be an uprising in the streets of Dublin. You can't do anything about it. And surely, knowing the certainty of such a thing, you will work as hard as you can with whatever you've got to get us weapons. I'm going to jump ahead. So, ostensibly, the Germans said yes, we're going to give you the weapons, but they're not really being that honest about it. And Casement's having the crisis anyway. I mean, Casement is a closeted gay man at a time where he could go to prison for that. He's also ended up in this position where So many people are relying on him that if his private life comes out, he's not just going to fail himself, he's going to fail an entire population of people. So the pressure's on. So what they decide they're going to do, the Germans say they're going to send the boat, it's called the Alde, and they're going to send it over to Ireland, and then they're going to send Casement in a U-boat and just dump him in the water. And it's not working out very well. Anyway, everybody knows like the Easter Rising, it didn't work. I mean, it worked in a slow way. It killed a bunch of heroes, made some martyrs, made a lot of Irish people really pissed off, and it worked. It had the slow way of working. But what it did is it resulted in a lot of bloodshed, and it made people take notice. So this is before the Easter Rising, and he still thinks it might come together. And he's on a U-boat. Bannistrand, April 1916. It is a burial at sea. However, Casement has always thought burial would offer peace, and this is an odd coffin packed with activity and actors. He would turn to face the wall, but the bunk does not accommodate this. His head is shoved up against a circuit box. The heels of his shoes rest against a steel plate covering a nest of wires. His knees project into the space before him and are routinely struck by the sailors passing through the cabin, although it's not a cabin, really, just a few yards marked off and two bunks, this one longer than the other and at times occupied by the quartermaster and that across from him. Monteith is sitting there and would be looking into space, but there is no space, so he's focused on a patch of wall just above Casement's head. The walls are slick with condensation, and drops of water spatter onto his face with fair frequency. The air is thick and unwholesome, heavy with heat. Monteith takes a vial from his pocket and shakes it. You can hear the tablets rattle. He laughs and then composes his face into grim resignation. He and Monteith have pills and a tube of curare poison with express instructions to use it in the event that they're captured, although right now, survival seems of more importance than orchestrating death. You're awake, says Monteith, nodding at Casement. I'm afraid I haven't been much company. And there's been plenty of that. The sound of a man vomiting can be heard from beyond the curtain. Casement, too, would be vomiting, but he's done with that, emptied himself completely about an hour ago. The scent lingers with that of urine and a reeking medley of sweat-soaked wool. So I asked the captain how he could manage to be in this tin can for so long, with all the smells and closeness, and I'm expecting some sort of condescending German speech about superior race and all that. So I say, Captain Wiesbach, how do you do it? You know what he says to me? No, says Casement. Opium. They're all on opium. Monteith shakes his head, looks at the vial again. That's not opium, Bob. Don't worry about me. I'm not one for that sort of thing, and we know fuck all anyway. I'm not sure what secrets they're worried about us giving up. Monteith may not be inclined to take his own life, but it's a suicide mission they're on, poison or not. At least they've managed to keep the Irish Brigade out of this, because to send them to Ireland now would surely be the equivalent of lining up all those men against the wall to be shot. Instead, they're accompanied by Beverly, or whoever he is, because that's not his real name, who has been sent over from Ireland and is now speeding back to no good purpose. Casement's not sure when he signed his own death warrant. The music of rattling pills accompanies this knowledge, but even if he dodges that, he's destined for the noose. He knows it. The night before, he had brought his personal papers to Countess Blucher and had broken down into a fit of weeping. He's just out of the hospital, so it was predictable, although perhaps somewhat of a surprise to her ladyship. The Countess can't really be trusted, but there's no one else, and the fact that she knows Ward, or has at least met him, provided connection to some kinder time. It is its own particular torture not to be able to comfort his good friend for the death of his son, not to be able to grieve this child in a public way. He carries the loss of Charlie in silence. He harbors hope there's been some mistake in the telegraph, which is where he read the news, looking for it as he lay in his hospital bed, finding it, and then trying not to believe. He tries to articulate the stuff of Sarita's grief, of Ward's grief, and of his own. He keeps from thinking over what he knows must be the case, that his friendship with Ward has bled out on the field of Flanders, along with all things good and youthful and true. He has held his grief in silence, buried it under papers and planning, shot up ideals and doctor's reports. He has struggled into meetings, and as he shouted, his voice cracked. He knew that he was speaking as a man on the edge of destruction, clinging to a dream to stop from slipping over. Negotiations and what was finally going to be shipped to Ireland and how had been fraught. And what was the point of fighting when it was clear the Germans wouldn't budge? What was the point in arguing over mode of transportation, number of weapons, quality, ammunition? The vast majority of the 100,000 men that Devoy wished to arm would go without rifles. That was clear. Everything else is mired in a fog of poor planning. In Ireland, people are waiting for the arms, prepared to rise up on Easter Monday. There is to be a rendezvous with a ship in Charlie Bay, but they only have 20,000 rifles, and these were of a vintage that does not inspire confidence. Devoy had said that something about the rifles like this being good enough for Napoleon, but that was when the enemy wasn't wielding something far better. Such statements are easily made from one's armchair in New York. The ship, the Owl, has a 4-day window to meet with the escort off of Branagh Strand. The U-boat will be reaching the coast of Ireland in the next couple of hours, and then Casement hopes he can contact the leaders of the uprising, although who these men are other than Plunkett is not known to him, and convince them that they are better off waiting for naval support from Germany. Although as he articulates the thought, he knows it represents a false hope. There is to be no German naval support. This is it for now. And waiting, which is what he wanted before he fully understood, will just take the current situation and transport it neatly into the summer. The volunteers, too, are angling for a conflict. Whatever distractions the Germans are giving the English works well for their cause. But even should the arms land and the men occupy, casualties will be high because occupying places like St. Stephen's Green means ridding it of dog walkers and students and shop girls with sandwiches and nodding drunks, not English soldiers. He didn't have a glimmer of what was at stake when Plunkett was still around. Plunkett had his little document for the Irish Brigade, and that was effective, and Peirce's address at the burial of O'Donovan Rossa, Casement had the souvenir booklet mailed by his sister Nina, was a brilliant piece of writing. There, by the old Fenian's graveside, the identity of Ireland had suddenly made sense. You could see it emerge from the primordial gel and stand fully formed in your mind. One would have to be insensible not to join this God-ordained war against oppression. Apparently, what Ireland needed was some pretty words on a bit of paper and a body for gravity, and suddenly she was an intelligible nation. Suddenly your blood was heated and you pick up a gun and head for the streets, feeling that anything less was cowardice, and worse, a negation of self. Casement has a curdling feeling in his gut that right now, one of these language teachers or poets or editors or painters or whoever else seems to be fueling the passion of this doomed uprising is coming up with some bit of paper. And given time, we'll find the bodies to sign to it in blood. Gone all quiet again, says Monteith. Did you think you'd lost me? I did just check you out of the hospital. Casement nods. I'm thinking of the Peirce speech. The last line has anchored itself in his memory. Enough to know that the valiant soldier of Ireland is dead, that the unconquered spirit is free. Ah yes, the noble dead, Monteith groans. We all know that the Irish are willing to die for Ireland, but what's needed is the men who can manage to stay alive long enough to shoot a few of the English. They are silent for some time. Monteith takes the pills out a few times and puts them back. He has a wife and daughters in America. He must be thinking about them because there's something regretful in his features, almost sentimental. Are you a lucky man, Roddy? Asked Monteith. It is a good question. Looking back on the matter of his life, it would seem that he has dodged a few disasters, although found himself mired in others. He has friends and experience and fame, but also loneliness and despair. Here on this U-boat barreling towards the coast of Ireland, wasted and weak after those long, frustrating months in Germany, it's hard to feel lucky. Adler is lost to him, lost to everyone, vanished and leaving no trail. Who knows what will happen? There it is again, happened. as if the very presence of that word implies the existence of a creator, a happener, someone who may or may not be feeling kindly towards Casement. And if there is a God, and he is the familiar one, he is not known for treating his loved ones gently. Lucky, says Casement, ask me tomorrow. Casement is not really asleep, but not exactly conscious when he is roughly roused at as close to 2 o'clock in the morning. What are we doing? Asks Casement. Beastbuck wants us out of here. He's getting worried about running into a patrol. Casement swings his legs around and sits up. Beverly sticks his head around the curtain. Got everything? What is there to get? Casement pats himself down in a perfunctory manner. He has a German code, although he's sure it isn't an important one. He has his poison, the pills, the tube of curare. He has a gun that he doesn't know how to operate. Let's go, says Monteith. The U-boat has surfaced to a surging sea. A rowboat bucks in the waves. One of the nameless sailors holds the rope. The water roars and breaks around the submarine, sucking at the sides. Casement holds fast to the railing, feeling hollowed and weak. He will not be able to row, that he is sure of, and is even wondering if he will make it to shore in consciousness. The moon, skirted in cloud, watches on coldly. Monteith is the first to reach the boat, stumbling in like a drunk. He recovers quickly, gestures for people to hurry. You next, says Beverly to Casement. He is to be handed in like a child. Hold the railing. Casement takes cautious steps. The observation deck is slippery and narrow. The Germans watch, eager to finally be rid of him, as eager as he is to be back on Irish soil. He swings his leg over the edge, sees Monteith's burly hand extended, and he grabs for it, managing 2 quick steps before a sudden surge up-tilts the boat and knocks him from his feet. He pulls himself to the bow of the boat. There's a blanket for you, says Monteith. Beverly is next, hopping him from the side. They start rowing for Tralee Bay, guided by the reach and dip of the little Phoenix light. The U-boat stays afloat just long enough to get its men back into its belly, and then it sinks beneath, as if Casement's imagination is what's called it to the surface. Casement takes the blanket and pulls it around his shoulders. The boat rocks up and falls away. He'll have to hold fast not to fall out. Monteith is a skillful rower and throws himself into the troughs, angling across the waves. A wave breaks over the bow, soaking Casement, bringing him into a more articulate consciousness. There's a lot of water accumulating in the boat, and a shouting match or a desperate conversation has sprung up between Beverly and Monteith. The great shattering of waves upon the strand means they are drawing close. Monteith is dealing with the shore break, trying to keep the boat at the correct angle, but his hand is wrapped. When did he injure it? And he's weak with the left oar. They swing around no longer across the waves, and there's one last roll that takes the boat and holds it and flips it over. Into the drink he goes. There is Casement sinking beneath the water. He reaches the ocean floor, its shifting surface of powdered stone, and he hears the clash and flash of rocks raked along the margin as the waves beat and mold the shore of Ireland. And here he'll die, a fitting end, a drowning on the eve of the futile uprising, and his lungs are filling with water, and it is a rough falling off, not as gentle as sleep, but a persuasive, brutal love. And then there's a tug at his neck, and he's pulled from the water, dragged with his face just in the air, and the sea still smacking his cheeks. I've got him, says a voice, Monteith's. Is he alive? Don't know. Jesus fucking Christ. He is rolled on his back on the rocky beach, and Monteith begins to chafe his arms and legs. Right, are you there? Casement begins to cough in streams of water. His nose is running. He is more liquid than solid. Well done, well done. We have to get going, says Beverly. I'm sure they've seen us. 3 men, says Monteith. Smallest invasion on record. We have to move, says Beverly. What do you suggest we do with Sir Roger? We'll hide him somewhere and get a car and come back for him. Monteith's pause seems to suggest that he's not in favor of the idea and can't think of a better one. Then Beverly is on his left side and Monteith is on his right, and they drag him along, and the toes of his shoes are scuffing up the beach. He's seen legless drums carried like this, and men after being beaten senseless. He's not sure which of these groups he belongs to, and also not sure that he justifies the creation of a third. I think it's a ring for it, says Beverly in response to something. Oh, keep him out of sight. He's lying in the long grass. At a distance, he can see an outline of beer bottles, maybe some empty cigarette packets. This must be a place where young people come for fun, out of sight of their elders. And this is where they will leave him, sheltered from the wind, cushioned by the grass. Roddy, don't go anywhere. He's not going anywhere, says Beverly. We'll be back as soon as we can. Don't make any noise. He's not going to make any noise, says Beverly. Shut your gob, Beverly. What is wrong with you? It's Roger Casement, for fuck's sake. And that's the last he hears before he drops into sleep. He has made it home. He has made it to Ireland. And if he never wakes, he will be all right, for his head is cradled gently, and the grass stirred by the night air is caressing his cheek. And there is the harsh whispering of waves on the strand, and the raking of rock against rock at the brink of a cold sea, and the rattle of some night bird's wings. He is all right. He is better than that. He is home. And I'm going to stop there. Yeah, I can answer questions if people have any questions, but you're probably worried because I talk so much. Like if you ask something, I might find yourself here for the next hour. That there's several people who are aware of this prolixion on my part, and they were like, "Stop me! Before it gets really out of control." So people will jump up and like do a flying leap and tackle me way from the podium.
We're playing down.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, because every writer kind of has a different process for naming characters. Kind of, what was your process with this?
Okay, that's really fun because with this book, like most of the people are real historical characters. So when I'm doing a research-based thing, it's a good question. Usually you have a kind of a mix, but there were just so many interesting characters that were historically there. That with all the people that you heard me talk about, even Wiesbach, the captain on the submarine, I actually found out the names of all the real characters and operated within that. But there are characters that I made up, and they kind of operate between the ones that exist. But it's really hard. I find that, especially because names go with time periods, so you really do need the right name for the right time period. So I tend to get books that aren't really well-known, novels from that time period that aren't particularly good, and then just mine them for names. So you can't have put somebody in a Victorian book you're writing, you're sitting in the Victorian era, and his name's like David Twist. You don't want to do that. So you kind of go a little further afield. So that's kind of how it works. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you're working on anything now.
Oh yeah. What I'm doing, I'm taking a break from the historical research stuff, and I've been working on ghost stories, kind of Jamesian, Henry James inspired, creepy stuff. I think it's what's weird is when I thought I was going to start writing this, and I had my serious writer friend, I thought, you're going to ask me what I'm doing, I'm going to be doing a ghost story, and you're going to be like, why? And no one was like that. They're like, yeah, please do that. I'm like, please write something fun. Please write something scary. So, yeah, and it's funny because I do so much research-based stuff, I was like, this is going to be no research. I am sick of research. I am just going to write these. I'm going to just walk around and have fun thinking about scary stuff, right? And then today I started working on one. I was like, it's going to be interacting with Alice in Wonderland. It's going to be set on this part of the Thames. And I was started researching and trying to figure out exactly what stretch of Thames Lewis Carroll used to go on with these little girls. And I figured it all out. And then there's a school named Randley. And, that guy, the song, Windmills, my mind. Okay, the guy who sang the version that was popular, I can't even remember his name, but he went to this prep school that is basically on the same stretch of the Thames as Lewis Carroll. This is kind of stuff I find out. I'm like, it means something. I'm like, what the hell could that mean? So the guy who popularized Windmills of My Mind went to prep school on the same stretch of the Thames as Lewis Carroll used to row the little girls, Alice. So for some reason, it's going to be a ghost story. That's the kind of stuff that really gets me kind of excited to write something scary. I don't know. So I was listening to Windmills. You know how many versions of Windmills of My Mind there are on like Amazon Music? 8. Some of them are just musical. What's the point if you don't have those really nutty lyrics? Like, oh, is it sound of distinct drumming or the fingers of my hand? You should listen to it. Very psycho. Good. Maybe that. Oh, yeah.
So, obviously, we run into Ryan Casement in Tales of the New World. Was there a particular character, or was there something else that drew you to the beginning of the 20th century Irish?
Yeah, I started researching Valiant Gentlemen before I wrote the Mary Kingsley story, which is just, but I had no idea what I was going to do with it. It seemed very intimidating because it was very intimidating. And it was that whole thing, Coles to Newcastle, why am I writing an Irish book? So it took me a while to get there. But as I was reading about Casement, I learned about Mary Kingsley, and she just became such a fascinating character. And I was just like, okay, if I write this book really quickly, I can get through that whole book before I start writing Valiant Gentlemen. Now, I had thought about writing a Casement book way before, a few years before I started really working in earnest on Tales of the New World. But it was a bit of a rehearsal. That story was definitely a rehearsal for that time period. But I think Mary Kingsley kind of took over on her own. These books, they kind of piggyback on each other. I'm really not sure where the ghost stories come out of this, but Tales of the New World came out of The Carnivore's Inquiry, which is a book that actually had this thing with cannibalism in it. It's kind of I thought it was a very funny gothic horror, but a comedy. And people were like, this book isn't funny, it's really disturbing. You're weird. Okay. Yeah, they're probably right. But it is funny. I think it's funny. But I had these weird, lateral moves where my character would just start thinking about cannibalism, and she'd go on this, 20-page digression. Maybe I've been reading too much Tolstoy or something. I don't really know why I was writing like that. But my editor came along and said, "You can't do this. We can't all of a sudden learn about Montezuma for 40 pages in the middle of your gothic horror novel. We cannot do this." I was like, "Good, but I can. It's fiction. You can do anything." No, you can't. I was like, "Oh, all right, fine." So I took them out, and then I started using those for the. I was like, I have to do something with it. So then I started turning those into the stories of Tales of the New World. Then when I started doing the Mary Kingsley thing, I was like, oh, I can, roll Casement out and give him a little practice run, see how he does. And he did okay. So I decided to, jump in and do the 500 pages. That's kind of what I got. Yeah.
I was just curious why you chose the present tense for this book, and also how that changed what your narrator could or couldn't do. Because we've been reading Tales of the New World, and the narrators in that, some of those stories are very interesting. And I don't know, it's hard to explain, I guess. But I'm just curious how the present tense, why you did that, and also why, or how it influenced what you could do in certain areas.
Yeah, well, that's very good. That is a good question, because when I was writing this book, and I think I told you guys in the masterclass a bit of this, when I started writing this book, I ran into a very well-known American writer, and she wasn't very fond of me she had applied for a job that she hadn't gotten, and I was on the committee, but I had nothing to do with it. Anyway, she was not very into me. And so she asked me kind of in this very snippy way, like, "So what are you working on?" And very condescending, like, "Oh, I'm working on this Roger Casement book," and "Oh, hasn't enough been written about him?" I was like, "No, because my book hasn't been written about him. When my book's written about him, enough will have been written about him, right?" I don't know what I said, because it was like that dinner with lots of people there, and they were all, "This is so horrifying and uncomfortable." And I was like, yes, it is. Someone save me. So anyway, but she actually did me a big favor because when I went home, I was like, why am I writing this book? And then I really had to think about it, like, why am I, what is the point of it? And then I had my little like epiphany, which was, it is only going to work if I write it because I'm trying to show what it was like to be this man when he didn't know what was going to happen. And I thought the way I could really drive home that point is by not flipping around in time, because I know like there are a lot of people in this room who write fiction, and it's very tempting. The character's walking down the street, and then it's how we live. We live with a foot in the past all the time. You know, you go into Starbucks, and you're like, I'm not getting a double shot of espresso because I did that yesterday. Then you flash back to yesterday, and you're spilling water everywhere, and you walk into a plate glass window. All right, and then that's your shift into the past. We live by shifting into the past. But I didn't want to do that because it's what you want is a historical person in their ordinary moments. If they're being bombastic and being historical, that's really not that interesting. If they don't know what's going to happen, if they live each day as we live our lives, not knowing what the future is, then it becomes interesting. So I thought the only way I could really drive home that point was to not jump around in time and just write it in the present progressive. He wakes up each morning and he doesn't know what's out there. So that's kind of why I did it. Also because you always are, you know, I mean, writing this way, they just tend to, you don't want to get bored as a writer. So I'm always trying to, I always think of this stuff as like, you know, like figure skaters, they have their triple toe loops or whatever, and they have all of these different things that are very hard for them to do. I mean, I think writers, as writers, we play these games with ourselves, and I was just like, I want someone to age very slowly for 500 pages. It's very hard to make people age. So I want them in their psychology to just get slightly more sophisticated at a slow trajectory. And I want to do it all in the present tense. That was what I said myself. So it was just to keep it fun and interesting and difficult too. Thanks.